Hello everyone, hello. Today's video review is brought to you by Nawtystep, and it is on the new album from Black Tiger Sex Machine, entitled New Worlds, released on Kannibalen Records. Now, I'm not gonna lie kids, I was definitely reluctant to review this one, and you will see why in a minute. But I was requested to do so, and this is an artist loved by thousands who want to see this art covered, and I'm more than happy to provide that. The Montreal-based trio are back with their sophomore album, released exactly 2 years to the day since their debut, Welcome to Our Church. Renowned for incorporating a lot of sci-fi and orchestral influences into their grungy, surreal, electro-fuelled sound. Owners of Kannibalen Records, coiners of the futuristic thriller genre, and with one of the most ambitious live setups out there. Combining, and I quote, tracks, loops, drums, samples and synths into an intense barrage of sounds and beats in a part DJ set, part live show. But I came into this album not expecting that much, because barring a couple of tracks, I didn't feel their first album at all. Mostly bland, uninspired, and without a true character or feel to it across the 12 tracks. And in reading that it took them 6 months to produce it from start to finish, all the while touring relentlessly in that time, my impression of the album as a whole didn't surprise me. It's also easy to underestimate the difficulty of producing with others, no matter how close you are to them. People assume more minds make it easier, but honestly, and from my own experience, having more people can make the process more difficult. One person has an idea, you implement it into the song you're working on, and you may not like it, but it's best not said because changing it would prove to be too much hassle. Now imagine doing that tens of times for one track, and then timesing that by the amount of tracks on that album, which is usually at least 10. It's bloody difficult, and so I praise any group of musicians going through that process because a lot of honesty and patience is required to come out with a product that everyone is happy with. I just felt with that album that process wasn't thorough enough, and as I said, I liked a couple of the tracks on it, but overall I found it a bit tepid. And I must say that I'm having pretty similar feelings towards this album too. For anyone that follows my tracks of the week on Twitter and SoundCloud, there was a reason there weren't any tracks from it in the latest edition. This album retains that dystopian post-apocalyptic feel, contributing to their zombie-inspired theme, but simultaneously resulting in a muddled sound that is never entirely sure of itself. This impression is first had with its opening track, which, in spite of its inviting lead hook, is quite limp and lacking in real personality. Setting the mood and vibe for the overall picture quite well, but bereft of the musical prowess to accompany that. Something the album does from start to finish, building the correct atmosphere without establishing the vital points as coherent in any way. By this I mean that for the most part their drops, their intros, their build-ups don't blend together as separate ideas within bigger wholes. It's mostly stale and one-dimensional, a lot of the time using one note repeatedly in a drop to see where it will get them. Like in the penultimate track Beast, where that low-pitched screech is just inserted time after time, seemingly impossible to escape from. Or the drop of Lions with Yuki, which has little utterances of sound with no real drive or purpose to them at all. As an extension of this point, they also have a tendency with this album to hone in on the muddiest, most saturated heavy sounds possible. Like in the track Zombie, with a drop akin to the darkest, most constant white noise you could imagine. Or Artificial Intelligence, which once again drones on in its frazzled state, with some Nero-esque notes doing nothing to elevate the track, more just filling space. Additionally, the percussion leaves a lot to be desired, almost entirely ill-fitting for everything that it props up. And I would give particular examples here, but I feel like it's too pervasive an aspect of these 10 tracks to single anything out. But I'm talking snares, kicks, hi-hats, none of it seems of the right volume or sound to complement what surrounds it. And beyond this, it just seems like a succession of bad choices, and I am talking fine details here. Like in Zombie once more, with those aimless siren noises leading off into the midsection. Or in the midsection of War, where those string notes just seem out of time and off-kilter somewhat. And the drop progression in Rebels from emphatic, terrifying and raspy to going on this weird, plodding vomit step tangent. Not to mention the strange, alien-like uttered vocal notes detracting from what is a very promising opening to the track Beast. There's just so much going on that is entirely superfluous to the overall picture that they are trying to paint. leaving me thinking more than anything about the amount of potential that isn't realised in this album, especially seeing as it is meant to be a more rounded project than the last one. I read a recent interview of theirs, and they cite this album as being more consistent, noting a degree of unity in comparison to Welcome to Our Church. And to some extent I agree, these 10 tracks do create an atmosphere and journey in a more efficient way than the previous album does. There are some decent aspects to their sound, the intensity of their music is still there, and in that sense it still builds towards their overarching theme quite well. They want that completely immersive, overwhelming experience where every art form they delve into combines into one solid whole. But I honestly feel that in creating this world they may have gotten too engaged in it, forgetting that the focal point of the concept is the music itself. To the extent that I've listened to every song of theirs in the last few years, and I couldn't tell you one song that I enjoy from start to finish. For me, they always fall short. Having said this, there are some brief redeeming features on this album that undoubtedly warmed my ears. Barring a few blips, I think the orchestral aspect of New Worlds is pretty good. Most notably in the melodies of the first and third tracks, and the horn notes that close off Replicants with Apache. The cute winding up violin noises in the second drop of Artificial Intelligence also really piqued my interest. And the openings of Madness, Rebels and Beast are enthralling and moody, embodying the at times imagistic nature of this music, encapsulating the concept. I must also mention the lovely electric wub and guitar mix section in the closing track Death, which introduces the beginning of the end very well. Furthermore, the riveting, infectious vocals from Panther and McIntyre on Zombie and Rebels respectively, lending an urgency and freshness to their instrumentals. And I also enjoyed the faster tempos that this album undertakes in its final 2 tracks. It made me think that if I do like anything from this artist, then it's going to be the quicker stuff. But all in all, there is just nowhere near enough to make me like this album as a whole in any way. BTSM have pretty much everything going for them. Cool artwork from Josh Hickson, amazing live shows, label owners. They interact loads with their audience too, which is very good to see, and have shed light on some amazing music through the Kannibalen label. Lest we forget that Alpha Dogs was my favourite song of last year. I stand for a lot of what they're doing. Their attitude to the industry just rocks in so many ways. And I would still go out on a limb and say that they have one of the most unique, unconventional approaches to producing electronic music out there. However, this is not for the right reasons, of which I feel I have unfortunately only just scraped the surface. Because their music is so out there and sporadic that I struggle to take anything from these songs as wholes. Maybe you're not meant to listen to this solely as music in itself, but as the soundtrack to your own imagined scenario, tailoring to the BTSM storyline. Creating that cinematic experience, producing these albums as imaginary films that everyone can interpret however they want. Because most of, if not all, these tracks could go with bits of animated footage, some as fillers, some as fight sequences, but all adhering to these particular moods and images. They wanted this album to be about discovery and the uncertain future, and their distorted, sci-fi infused approach certainly gets that across. But on the whole, I wouldn't say that this music exists as something viable in and of itself. But there are clearly a ginormous amount of people out there who love them. I mean, their Facebook page alone has almost 250,000 likes. So for those that did enjoy this album, please let me know why and go into as much detail as you can. Because whilst I didn't enjoy this thing that much, I would love for you guys to shed some light on what you enjoyed about it, what it was about the album, the 10 tracks overall, that got you ticking. Because you could interpret a snippet or a sequence or a whole section of music in a completely different way to me. And that is what makes music appreciation so great, because of how subjective it is. Now, in terms of a favourite track from New Worlds, I think I'd have to go with Rebels, simply because it has the best drop of the lot. But I also find it to be the best mix of intro, build up and drop of all 10 tracks. And for recommendations, if you enjoyed this album, check out Lectrique, Far Too Loud and Fool, or Fuck Our Ordinary Lives as he likes to go by. And breathe. Thank you guys for watching this review on the latest Black Tiger Sex Machine album, New Worlds, released on Kannibalen Records. Like this video, subscribe to the channel down to the right there, and most importantly, please leave a comment with your thoughts on this album. What did you guys make of it? Let's get some good discussion going. There is no right and wrong. Next to my head, there should be some other album reviews from the last couple of months, if you enjoyed watching this one. And don't forget to like and follow Nawtystep across all social media if you haven't already, with everything linked, including the recommendations, in the description box down below. And lastly, if it's naughty, then you know guys, so as always, be sure to keep it naughty and stay safe. And I hope to see you all in the next one. Peace.